I'm Linda Yu. I am the chair of the Royal Commonwealth Society, and it is my absolute pleasure to moderate this roundtable of extraordinary faces that you see on your screen, who I'm going to introduce in just a moment. But firstly, just to thank you for tuning in and to join us in celebrating International Women's Day, whose theme this year is Inspire Inclusion. So we know that for the Commonwealth, gender equality is a critical issue. And there are some fantastic examples of projects and campaigns by young people across Commonwealth countries. And I'm just so delighted we will be hearing from some of those today. But first, we are absolutely privileged to be joined by Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Edinburgh. Her work focuses on supporting women and championing gender equality, both in the UK and overseas. And we are just absolutely delighted that she's taken the time to join this roundtable. So thank you, Your Royal Highness.
Thank you very much, Linda. And it's an absolute honour to be back again with SAEN. And I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you about what you've been up to, some of the ideas that you have. You say that the theme is inspire. And in fact, actually, I'm always inspired by the young people around the Commonwealth. I've met many through SAEN and also through Queen's Young Leaders. The number of ideas is just incredible. And I think it's about them having the ideas and the energy, but it's about then putting in front of them the capability to scale up these ideas, because these are the people that can affect real change, and it's the change that we really need to see. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from all of you. I'm not going to say anything more because this is your platform and this is your opportunity to tell us what you've been doing. So thank you very much indeed. And I look forward to speaking again with you a little later on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Royal Highness. I also want to welcome Elizabeth Bow. She's the Deputy High Commissioner for Australia to the UK. She is a leading diplomat and another great supporter of gender equality and another great role model. So Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us, and we will hear from you very shortly. And we are here in the UK, but we are joined by young leaders working with SAEN, the Commonwealth Youth Gender Equality Network, an impressive group for which the RCS is honored to serve as Secretariat. So I'm going to give now a warm welcome to Iman Borg. He's from Malta, but he's joining us today from Bogota, Colombia. And so welcome. And a warm welcome as well to Sarah Ebo. She is from Nigeria, and she is joining us from Abuja. So a warm welcome to you as well, Sarah. And to Buhati Mugagwi. She is from Tanzania, and she is joining us from Dar es Salaam. So it is an absolute pleasure to have all of you here to celebrate International Women's Day. And as this is indeed, as Her Royal Highness said, a platform to showcase the work of young leaders, we should just start off and ask Iman to just tell us more about SAEN. Which, by the way, has a great acronym because otherwise the entire thing it's a little bit long. So Iman, please tell us about SAEN, the network, and your areas of focus in the coming year, because you are our coordinator.
Indeed, it has a great acronym. Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. It is an absolute pleasure, firstly, to be the coordinator of SAEN at this time. It's an exciting time for the network, both as a young activist from a very small island called Gozo, as part of Malta, and as a Queen's Young Leaders, as it was mentioned, but now also was coordinator of SAEN. It is our responsibility as young people to continue these conversations and to be present as part of this conversation. And SAEN is in a very particular, unique position that works and commits its work towards the intersection of youth and gender together. And that is particularly interesting because it's firstly not unheard of globally to kind of have that conversation. And in this geopolitical situation that we all live in, the scenario that we all live in, young people, young girls and women are being disproportionately affected with all that is happening. And so therefore, when you think about the intersection of young people and gender, you can only imagine the heightened effect that is having on our young people across all Commonwealth countries, but also globally, because we do not live in a silo. And that in itself is why the gender agenda. So it's a binding document, really. It's a leading document that was founded in Malta in 2015, dare I say, by a group of young activists across the Commonwealth that the RCS facilitated. And we are honestly grateful for the support that RCS has given nearly 10 years now. And that is a statement in itself, also on the relationship that we have with the Royal Commonwealth Society as our secretariat. And the gender agenda focuses on 5 themes, and the 5 themes that we will tap into. 2 of those themes: governance, women in leadership, sexual health and reproductive rights today, but also the intersection of that, Sojajsk, youth transition, child and early forced marriage, and how all of these affect each other. The young person transitioning from youthhood to adulthood, and how that is impacting young girls and women disproportionately from men or other genders. And then when you have individuals of race or different sexual orientations, and from the different regions of the Commonwealth. And that is why SAEN, that is the need of SAEN to have this conversation, to highlight the differences, but then to come together with unique solutions. And in a couple of years ago, and this is what's interesting, is that we always realize that young people have a very strong voice when there's a collective. And we are proud to say that we have members from across all Commonwealth regions and members that are doing great work in their areas. We have 2 members with us today that will talk also about their work. And the reason why is because in order for this to happen, we do need support. And that support at the Australia High Commission and the governance has been a great supporter of all of this throughout our experience, because without support, we cannot do anything. But it is not just that support, it is the common conversation that we're having as equals, because we are equal. It is literally in the name of SAEN. And so when you look at the network, it is the youth and the genders as equal together as part of the Commonwealth. And that's why the abbreviation of SAEN is beautiful, because all of these identities are really merging in together. 2024 is an exciting time. It's an exciting time because CHOGM is happening, and because CHOGM is happening, SAEN also has the responsibility to work with young leaders in the Pacific, a very important region for the Commonwealth. And that in itself also leads us to our privilege, to assert to our privilege. And why am I mentioning privilege as CHOGM is coming? Because at the end of the day, when we're discussing policies, we're discussing geopolitical situations, we have to start from our privilege. And our privilege is important because then we can also make informed decisions about what's affecting other individuals that we may not be understanding about. And to do that, we need to be informed. And rightly so, in 2024, SAEN is working on an informed campaign to let youth individuals be aware of the privilege and also what we can do with our privilege to support other young people. And through that information, through that factual information, because unfortunately there is a lot of misinformation out there, through that factual information, we can also reform. We can also reform conversation, we can also reform debates, we can also reform laws. And this is our campaign, #Reform for Legal Advocacy, that we're leading in 2024, and that we will continue this conversation in order for young people to have the capacity building skills for leadership, and also to be informed to reform. And that is important for us here at SAEN, and at the end of the day, to give these platforms to young people in their work. So that is SAEN in a nutshell, but I cannot do justice of the work of SAEN if we don't listen also from our young leaders here. So I am honestly privileged to be able to be here. And at the end of the day, I would like to conclude this. The role of man when it comes to inspiring inclusion in International Women's Day. We are talking about equality here. So it's not about giving or taking. It's about all being equal, to have equal opportunities. And man has a very important role in this conversation to assert our privilege, so we can also be informed about the other situations that are being faced. And I think with that note, it's important that as men and as individuals that are often taken as those with privilege, we need to unstrap ourselves with the privilege. We need to unlearn what we have learned through our systematic systematic education, and we need to say, listen, this is our privilege. Let's make good use of it. Thank you so much, and I look forward to this conversation.
Thank you very much, Iman. You said that so well, and you're more than just the man on the panel. And that is a perfect segue, actually, to Australia's support. So I want to bring in the Australian Deputy High Commissioner, Elizabeth Bowes. And SAEN, as we just heard there, has had an extraordinary trajectory. It is now the UN-recognized youth-led gender equality initiative. And I think this is a huge it's a huge amount to have achieved in less than a decade. And Australia has supported SAEN since its inception at CHOGM, the mouthful, which is the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. Maybe we can lead a campaign to shorten it somehow to the Commonwealth Summit or something in 2015. So Australia has provided a number of essential grants. This has enabled participation by our young leaders at these heads of government meetings, not just in Malta, but also in London and in Rwanda, the most recent meeting of CHOGM, as well as I mentioned, the United Nations. But in Rwanda, SAEN launched the Commonwealth Knowledge Hub. It's an online resource for youth advocates funded by Australia, which I highly recommend to everyone, because to be involved, and we love for you to become involved as part of SAEN, but any of you who are watching, just become involved. Check the hub, check the resource, and this is really about building, as we heard, a collective to make a positive change using the energy of youth. So, Elizabeth, would you just mind sharing some thoughts on why gender equality is such a priority for Australia?
Thank you very much, Linda, and I'm absolutely delighted to participate today, and particularly proud of the support that Australia could lend SAEN right from its inception, and really pleased to hear some of the really positive outcomes that have arisen out of our support for SAEN. So thank you for highlighting those. Gender equality is important for all in society, and I just wanted to pick up from what Iman said. Very much it's not just about women and girls, it is also about men. And I think the evidence shows that when there is equality, all of society benefits. The contrast is when there are inequalities, there are negative impacts on society. And we can see those in different examples in different sectors of our society. Because basically discrimination eliminates us all and limits us all. And addressing discrimination, be it through gender equality or indeed opening up diversity of views from youth, etc., ensures greater inclusivity and greater benefits to society. It expands possibilities for all of us. We can look at economic prosperity, and there's a lot of evidence to demonstrate that gender equality has a very positive impact on economic prosperity. At a very micro level, gender equality drives better employee retention, productivity, and innovation. But of course, those benefits flow on to the entire economy, to the benefit of all. And that helps improve productivity and resilience at a nationwide macro level, particularly in this era that we've experienced of economic shocks. So, for example, if we close the gender pay gap, that's one example of achieving gender equality. Evidence has shown that that could boost global GDP by up to $12 trillion. That's a really macro example. At the micro example, gender equality boosts economic prosperity at every level of society. Now, Iman also mentioned the benefit for governance of gender equality, better government, better governance. And I think there's a lot of evidence to show that gender inequalities cause corruption because they limit oversight and restrict access to power. It's all about, if you have gender inequality, if you're excluding the views of women and girls, and indeed of youth, you're limiting diversity of views, you're creating a monopoly of views, and that in itself can become an echo chamber and can, of course, further corruption and corrupt practices, not open those up to the light. Basically, healthy democracies cannot exist where there is discrimination and exclusion, and that includes in relation to gender equality. Now, if we look at the example of the rates of women voting and standing for election, that level is very strongly correlated with reduced levels of corruption and increased trust in government. And that's so important, particularly in the societies in which we're living. Another direct example, greater involvement of women in government and governance has led to better climate change policies and policies to lower emissions, thereby also having a very positive global impact on our future. Finally, and probably most importantly, it has been demonstrated that involving women negotiators in peace negotiations is a really strong indicator of the viability of that peace and long-term and lasting peace. In fact, gender equality is one predictor of peace. It is a strong predictor of avoidance of war. Inequality, on the other hand, is a strong predictor of civil war. So we see the flip side of equality and inequality. So these are just some of the many reasons why the Australian government is so supportive of gender equality. And I would bring in the voice of youth, because it is about diversity of views, ensuring as diverse range as possible. And youth is a really important well of inspiration and new ideas for all our societies. So youth, gender equality, two sides of the same coin. Thanks, Linda.
Fantastic, Elizabeth. Thank you so much. And some excellent points there. And I think really sets the stage for why this is an issue that we're all passionate about. And yes, the Commonwealth, 60% of the population are under the age of 30. This is actually why I love this role. It's wonderful to be around, young people who have done amazing things. But it does make one feel a little bit old. So I'm just going to, just mention that. So in the, we can't cover everything, but because this theme this year is about inspiring inclusion. There are two topics that I hope we can just go around the table and discuss a bit. The very first one is a fundamental human right, which is reproductive health. To be inclusive of women in all the ways and get all the benefits that Elizabeth described, this is hugely important. And then, of course, the second topic, which we must talk about, especially given who's around the table, is actually women in leadership roles, because this, I think, will give us a sense of what has happened, what's possible, and what can we all do going forward. So to kick off the first topic, I want to now turn to Sarah Abel. And she is from Nigeria. And as part of SAEN, we know that sexual and reproductive health and rights is one of this network's thematic areas. So Sarah, as a gender and technology expert and the policy lead at Gender Mobile Initiative, can you just tell us a bit more about this and your approach to advocating for women and girls? And, and I think importantly, how can we foster long-term change on a societal level? So the floor is yours, Sarah.
Thank you very much, Linda. And good day, everyone. I first want to say it's an absolute honor to be here engaging with Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Edinburgh, as well as with members of the Australian government and the RCS, and of course, SAEN, which I belong to. So first off, I just want to highlight that whenever people hear about my portfolio, they are always wondering, like, what's the connection between gender and technology and sexual and reproductive health and rights, and by extension, gender equality? I mean, it's due to a lot of factors. First off, we are young people, that has been said, and Iman has already touched on the aspect of SAEN particularly having a gender agenda, and he went further to explain the Gender 5, part of which sheds light on SRHR, which is sexual and reproductive health and rights. And in that gender agenda, it goes beyond to say that we don't just want access to SRH services and information as young people, but we also need the technology and the budget set in place to be able to have access and the support we need as young people. And if that is lacking, then there is going to be a gap, particularly to the detriment of women and girls. And that leads us back to gender inequality, which we are trying to fight, or we're trying to address. So in that way, you could see that there is a connection. Simply put, if young people don't have access to sexual and reproductive health and rights, which is made easier with using technology, we are not going to achieve the gender equality we seek for. So in regards to that, I am privileged to be as a young person working with SAEN, being affiliated with SAEN and with organizations such as Gender Mobile, which has already been mentioned, specifically leveraging technology to address sexual and reproductive health and rights issues. And in terms of approach, I would say my approach is multifaceted, which integrates technology, education, particularly in form of information, which Iman has already shed light on. Also putting in the work on policy advocacy and community engagement, because it's crucial for young people to be informed. It's crucial for them to be educated. Education is power. If you're not informed, if you're not educated, and particularly in an accessible manner, leveraging technology, there is going to be a problem. So it's in that light, my approach usually involves leveraging technology to be able to have that. And not just leveraging technology, but more importantly, including young people as actors. We are the makers and shifters of this game as well. We're not just persons that need to have policies placed on us or programs placed on us, but we also have a say at the table, at the seat. So there is that need for community engagement in terms of driving advocacy efforts regards to sexual and reproductive health and rights. There's also the important issue of comprehensive sexuality education, which still falls under education, while also challenging the systemic barriers and norms, because we know that access to SRHR services is systemic in itself. And it's not just something we young people can do. We also have to leverage government and other actors to see that we have that access. So that is one of the approaches that is also linked to having access to SRHR services and information as well. And flowing from this, in order to foster long-term change at societal level, we have to keep on emphasizing on education and awareness raising, policy advocacy, empowerment and leadership, not just that kind of empowerment that imposes on the young people, but that also unlocks the potential of young people, because we have a lot to offer, right? So if you give us that chance, we would show you what we're made of. And definitely also having that increased support in terms of technology, innovation, collaboration, and partnership is important, particularly for young people in developing contexts such as Nigeria and other Commonwealth nations. Our technology state is something that needs to be supported, and that's where we have to focus on the reality of having that support in terms of technology that helps to support the achievement of having access to sexual and reproductive health services on the long-term level that would sustainably address the issue of SRHR limited access to youth as an impediment to gender equality. So by adopting this holistic approach of technology, education, policy advocacy, community, and youth-led engagement, I believe that we're going to address the intersection issues of gender inequality, technology access, and limited access to sexual and reproductive health and rights, particularly for young people, and within that context, particularly for women and girls, such that any women and girl that's particularly in a rural area or urban area or suburban area can have access, and they can be the best versions of who they want to be. So yes, that is my response to this.
That is really some fantastic work. You painted a picture, which is so empowering. And I just have this picture of this intersection between technology and inclusion, where we would often say, if you don't have a seat at the table, just pull up a chair. But you're doing this digitally. And I just think that is just a fantastic next frontier. So thank you so much for your work and for highlighting that. Just looking around, perhaps we'll pick up the second topic, and then we will go from there. So as I mentioned, we are going to talk about women in leadership roles, because we do have some incredible female leaders here as well as our Iman, a wonderful leader too, don't worry. And so as we So I'm going to now turn to Buhati. She's the founder and director of, as I said, the Girls First Initiative in Tanzania. So from your experience, how do you empower girls and women to take action and to own their future? What role do programs and tools play in helping young girls navigate the transition from childhood into adulthood? So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Linda. And I'm actually truly honored to be here. And I'm so happy to actually meet you, Your Highness, Royal Commonwealth Society, SAEN, which I've been a proudly member. I think this has been a very nice opportunity. When it comes to empowering young girls and young women, when we started Girls First Initiative, as other organizations, we were providing awareness campaign in different matters, which was very good, and also doing capacity building, which was also very good. And when we did our first years, one of the things we discovered when we went to talk to girls, like they already known these stuffs for so long. They've been known about gender equality, the awareness campaign, and everything. And one of the things they asked us is, how do we be part of it? So as an organization, it gave us some sort of reflection, and we went back to ourselves and look around, how do we actually now involve them to take actions? And one of the things that we discover is actually to build their own agents. So now we moved from providing training in terms of awareness and capacity building. Now we're building them on how to advocate for their own right, and also creating their own futures, because as much as we want to do these programs and do capacity, in the next generation, you won't be here and no one's gonna do it. So if we not impact them to do them by themselves now, it's like all the work that you're doing is not gonna have an impact. So we started building agents for the girls, and now we create them actually to give how to speak for themselves, how to actually, and again, when we're doing all that, what we're doing is just capacitate themselves on how to do that. And again, it's been a learning process. And when they ask us, now we already capacitate us, what are the tools that we're going to use to do that? Now, again, at the organization, we came back and look around. And one of the things that we discover is like they've been very tired of all those awareness campaign, capacity building. They want to take actions. And this action, they need to have actual tools, resources, and opportunity for them to practice. So we moved our direction now. And what we are currently now doing as Girls First Initiative is we create supportive environment by providing girls with access to quality education, mentorships, tools and resources for them to be able to build their own agents, but also to practice in this gender equality movement. Our tool range from the different perspectives, from the different range and from the different age groups. So we basically work with the girls from age of 9 to 27, acknowledging that they have different actually needs. So we divide them in the two groups. So we have age from 9 to 17, where we create tools like a journal. So we have self-discovery journal that help adolescent girls actually to understand the change that happened during adolescence, how to set health boundaries between themselves and family. This is a way to actually be away from the gender-based violence, and also to take a leadership, and also how to speak for themselves. One of the things in African context is like ADAT is, I don't know if it's applying in other context, but ADAT is always right in our own context. So we wanted to build this leadership by giving them tools to actually practice how to speak for themselves. So we create also another tool in terms of, because adolescents, they're now, for the girls especially, they're starting their period. We also develop an offline period track. As much as we talk about technology and come in terms of health for the young women, in the rural places in Tanzania, most of the adolescent kids don't have access to smartphone, don't have access to, even if they have smartphone, they don't have access to reliable internet to actually track their period and get all the information about the period. So we created also the book rate to have them now not only get the primary information about menstruation, but also for them to be able to actually track their period offline without use of internet, without use of smartphone. So we have tools like that. But other way, we also deal with the young women from age of 17 up to 27. And this group is the group that they're high schools and universities. And what we do with them is actually we provide them, we have an online platform now, because this group now have access to smartphone and internet. We give them the online platform for them to practice leaderships. We have different leadership courses. some of the core that we have is impact-based leaderships, value-based leaderships, and other cores for them to be able to practice. All of this is just to build agents for them. They can be able to translate from one another from one stage to another. And no one would say growing up is easy, especially from actually my context as a Tanzanian girl. I've been raised in a community where I didn't have a chance to speak for myself and even a chance to actually practice what I believe in. So what we currently do is just provide also mentorship to give these girls who I think has been through the same struggles as me and other many girls in Tanzania and Africa. So we give them mentorships actually to be able to actually practice their leadership. Some of the programs that we do in our organizations, we call Read Down the Lies. This is a program where every month we invite adolescent girls, one adolescent and one young woman to come in our organization to practice one role. Why don't we give them, some of them could just come and practice being executive director, some sector to be program manager. The one reason we did that because apart from just capacitate them to be leaders, we actually need opportunity to practice what we do as a young leader. I just look at myself when I was 17, if I had a chance to practice to be executive director, probably when I started the Girls Space Initiative, I could have different paths. And just picture if also a girl could actually have a chance to practice to be a president or to be a politician when the younger age. So when this chance comes, we don't feel fear or we don't feel like we don't have capacity. Because more often as a young women and girls, we've been actually told like, there's no space for us. So what we're trying to do is actually to showcase that there's space for every girl and young woman to serve. No, never in my dream I ever thought as a country we're going to have the female president. But we do have a female president now, and it's actually very nice looking for a role model that we have a female president now, and every girl can have a chance to dream. So what we do actually as an organization is also giving those possibilities and showcasing the girl that they have a chance to actually see, because now they can see it, they can be whoever they want, but also they have a chance to dream. And if those dreams, at least, if they won't come to, but at least they have a chance to dream because they see someone that have been achieved the same dream that they do. So in terms of the role that's playing in the programs and tools that's played in for girls to actually navigate from childhood to adulthood, it actually to build confidence, it builds resilience, it actually builds a sense of ownership of this movement of gender equality. So I'm actually so honored and I'm so happy to hear from Sarah and everyone that is doing gender equality, because for us as an organization, creating inclusive society is what we actually dreaming of. Thank you so much, Linda.
Oh, thank you so much. And can I just say, your voice is certainly well heard today. So thank you. That was so inspiring. So, and that again segues beautifully to Her Excellency Elizabeth, because you are indeed a role model. You are leading a female diplomat. Of course, you haven't worked just in the UK. You've also worked, well, globally. So it'd be wonderful to hear about your career and any advice that you might have for others to come in your path.
Thank you so much, Linda. And I was completely inspired by Bahati's words, a really wonderful example of what women can do to take ownership of their futures. And I think that's probably the most important piece of advice. Be open to opportunities, seize opportunities, create opportunities. And I think that's what I have done upon reflection. This is a wonderful forum because it's made me reflect on some of my own career. But what I have done is been open to opportunities. And career paths are not linear. There are often setbacks. They don't always turn out in the way in which you plan. But with an overarching goal, you can get there. And so, for example, for me, I was very fortuitous. I was 18 when I went to Geneva. I recognize I was very lucky, and did a tour of the UN in Geneva. And at 18, I said to myself, I want to work for the UN. 10 years later, I was offered an opportunity through study for a short-term contract in the UN, and I seized it. I had no other plans in place. I seized that and took that opportunity to go and work in Geneva for the United Nations for 5 years, where I was really exposed to some of these global conversations. I was quite young at the time, so I think now on reflection, encouraging younger people to enter global organizations at a young age would really be of benefit both to the organization and to global governance. And so I think me paying that forward and encouraging younger people to take up opportunities where they can and seek them out is one of the key pieces of advice. Bahatia mentioned networks, mentors, incredibly important. Diplomacy's changed. It used to be a bit of a last bastion of male patriarchy, maybe is a little bit too high stated, but certainly a male-dominated profession. It is now very much in many areas achieved not quite equality, but a much more significant presence of women. Networks of female diplomats are really important, and that's what I draw upon here in London. We have a lovely network of female diplomats who can share experiences, address issues, common issues in a frank, safe environment. And that's a really important way of really helping your own contribution to your career. And that's important at every stage of your career. I think it doesn't matter how experienced you are or how inexperienced, a mentor, a confidant is really important. And I would say from my perspective, I've been incredibly lucky. I've had very strong supporters in my male supervisors. And I think going to what Iman mentioned at the beginning, recognizing the role of women and men, but particularly how men can bring about change for women and seizing their careers. So being open to advice was one of the key elements I learned that was proffered to me by senior men in saying, take your seat at the table. One man actually said, you sit at this table in this group of senior executives, you belong here. So take advice, be open to advice, be open to opportunities. And I think they have really held me in good stead throughout my career in diplomacy. And certainly I will continue to encourage others to be open to those opportunities.
I want to come to Your Highness in just a moment, but on this table analogy, which we seem to be on today, it's a fantastic analogy because there's a joke in Brussels, which is if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And you have to be at the table on the big decisions. And I should also just mention Elizabeth and I know each other through this informal network, actually. And so it is so important to support each other and to encourage. And speaking of that, one of the biggest supporters of women in the Commonwealth on the global stage is, of course, Your Royal Highness. The profile that you have and the work that you do is hugely inspiring. I want to come to you to get your conclusion on everything in a moment. But I would just love to hear any reflections that you have on sort of, we heard at the start how important this issue is to you, and just a bit about, maybe some of the, just some of your thoughts of occupying such a role that has inspired so many, and any advice that you might also give to our young leaders here.
Thank you, Linda. My advice is to keep going, because this is something that we're a long way off achieving right the way throughout the Commonwealth. And in fact, actually, I have to thank you today for providing me with the inspiration that I have to say I was slightly depressed yesterday because I attended a meeting where we were actually discussing the progress or not of equity, diversity and inclusion, particularly in the workplace in the United Kingdom. And what is clear is that we are beginning to experience a backlash, not only a backlash on EDI, but we're also experiencing a backlash on the environmental sustainable goals as well. And that is because it's being measured against performance and also things like return on investment. And there are many organizations that are starting to go, well, you know, we're putting people in place to do this thing called EDI. And is that actually giving us a return on our investment? We've got people who are leading on this. We've got departments. We've got, you know, I think that a lot of this is being driven by reporting back to shareholders and things like that. And this sort of intangible thing, which, as we know, has got very serious monetary benefits if we get it right. But it's difficult to explain to people because that may not be seen immediately. So, as I say, I was slightly depressed yesterday because it does seem that we are starting to potentially go backwards in some of these areas, if I'm completely honest, which means that, as Emmanuel was saying earlier on, the role of men in this is absolutely crucial. We cannot shift any of these dials unless men understand and are engaged with this. Now, I've been involved with gender equality issues over quite a long period of time, both in the United Kingdom and abroad. Every time we know very, very clearly that it takes two to tango. You know, women represent, 50-51% of the world's population, but we need that other 50% to help hold the door open for us. And I'm always saying, this is not a competition. This is about doing something that everybody stands to win from. What it means is you just get a bigger piece of a bigger pie. It doesn't mean you get less of the pie. It doesn't mean that you can't have part of the pie. Everybody stands to win. And talking about the seat at the table, and I've mentioned this in the past. I had a fascinating encounter years ago now, actually in Malta, where I was discussing with a group of I'd done a wonderful visit. I'm not going to say where I was, probably best not. But I'd gone all the way around this organization and met many women in different roles. And it seemed like, very, very engaging and very diverse environment, until I went into the boardroom. And I'm standing in the boardroom and there's this beautiful table and it's all looking very elegant and lovely. And I said, out of interest to the senior executive, how many women do you have on your board? And there was a bit of shuffling of feet and staring at the ceiling and staring at shoes. And I was told, we have plans. And I said, oh, okay. So I don't understand why you can't have a woman at the table. I'm constantly being told that, where are the women? Well, believe me, there are plenty of them out there. I mean, we've got some fantastic women on the screen today. There are lots of women. It's just a question of looking for them and helping them. But back to the conversation, I said, so I don't quite understand why you can't have another woman at the table or a woman at the table. And they said, well, there are only a certain number of chairs, a number of seats around the table. And I said, I suggest you bring another chair into the room. It was just, it kind of was one of those classic situations, but literally played out in front of my face. So I am concerned about the rollback and also the fatigue because, we're having to bang the drum very loud and very consistently. I know that there's plenty of women in fabulous leadership roles out there. We just have to keep going. And that's why I am truly inspired to see young women on the call today who are providing that inspiration, as well as the many, many more female members of SAEN, who I know each and every one of them are doing an incredible job. But we just have to keep going. Let not the issues cloud our vision to create a better environment for everybody, working environment, sustainable goals, everything. We have to keep going. But so I thank you for re-inspiring me, re-energizing me, because we are very much a long way off this. And sorry for the reality check, but that is the reality we live with, and it doesn't matter whether or not, you know, we're talking about Tanzania, Nigeria, United Kingdom, Australia. You know, the issues are pertinent to every one of our nations and all nations around the Commonwealth. The nuances obviously are slightly different, but the issues remain fundamentally the same. So I thank you for all of your inspiration and your leadership, and I encourage you to just keep going. Thank you, Linda.
Oh, thank you, Your Highness. I just have this vision in my mind now of you and your power, your influence, just asking the question. I bet there'll be more chairs around that table the next time you go to that organization.
I hope so. I jolly well hope so. But it is, you know, I think we have to be honest as well. You know, our job is to give platforms to young people to have their voice and to really push these agendas forwards. And, you know, without the young people pushing from behind, those of us on the screen today who are not in the same generational category as some of the others, dare I say, you know, we can get fatigued. You know, it's hard work pushing the rock uphill, and especially when the rock feels like it's coming back down towards you again, when you think that you're getting somewhere. And there are some incredible examples of where the true success has been experienced, and we can't forget about those. But whilst we have successes, we're also experiencing an undercurrent of backlash. You know, there's some, and it's interesting because I understand the backlash. You know, if you're constantly being told, you know, women need to do this, women need to do that, often the men are sitting there going, what about us? Well, I get that, but actually, well, come and join us. Don't feel that this is an exclusive club. This really is not. We are wanting to do this together. But instead, sometimes I think some people are going further to the extreme of going, well, we're going to work against this, not with it. And then all of the reasons to be doing something, which basically comes down to bottom line and to society actually benefiting everybody, you know, that gets lost in the midst of kind of this becomes now another battle. But yeah, so let's keep pushing the rock uphill.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I think, you know, you said these young people have re-inspired you. I think that was hugely inspiring for all of us. And indeed, recognizing the scale of the challenge and actually the challenge of just defining what is inclusion. That is very hard, whether you are, you know, leading a grassroots initiative or you're in the boardroom. How you make that properly inclusive, I think that was a wonderful exposition on it, Your Royal Highness, because this is indeed the theme of this year's International Women's Day, which is how do you do this? And recognizing the challenges, how do you inspire inclusion? How do you battle fatigue? How do you make sure that the pie does get bigger so we can all be at this metaphorical table, which has become the theme of today.
I think one of the other interesting things to see how the language of what we're trying to do has changed as well. So even though we still talk about gender equality, when you use the word equality, it can be quite confrontational, I suppose, because it means, well, if you're going to be equal, that means that there has to be, and there's only one job, that means that somebody's going to lose out. And that's why I always talk about the bigger piece of the pie, that actually you increase the whole and therefore there's more opportunity for everybody. And so actually it's interesting to see how we're starting to use words like equity. And having equity means that you have a voice. You have the opportunity to be heard, to be listened to, and to be recognized and respected. And I think it's interesting to see how we are changing the language of what we do, because we're recognizing that some of it is inflammatory and confrontational, and none of this is meant to be any of that.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. And I think the even the term EDI or DEI, it's the definition of the E that has differed across organizations. Sometimes it's equality, sometimes it's equity, picking up this idea that there is a backlash and that we need to think about what that means when women start from further behind because of systemic issues. And I think, to me, this is why it's so fantastic to have your input, Your Royal Highness, and to hear from everybody on the screen, because these are issues that we all have to contribute to in order to shape the future that is properly inclusive. And and with that, I want us now to watch and hear. So I want us now to hear from another youth-led feminist movement, this time from Malawi. And this is the organization Girls on the Lead, led by SAEN member Susan Salami Chisi. The organization thrives on the success of women in leadership positions. And so let's hear from Susan about her work in Malawi.
We are Girls on the Lead Young Feminist Movement, a Malawian-based grassroots movement that fosters the promotion of young women's rights. We believe that girls ought to be kept in school for us to achieve the goal of having women leaders in leadership positions. So we say no to period poverty, because it is a factor that has resulted to some young women dropping out from school. We also train young women to have different vocational skills so that they may be economically empowered, because we believe that an economically empowered woman is a good leader. We also have role modeling sessions for young women, because we believe that when young women have been fed with the right information, they are going to be kept in school and they will achieve their dreams. Because one thing that the patriarchy has denied us from is the right information. Our Economic Empowerment Project provides support for young women to indulge in various agricultural practices.
Your Royal Highness, we've heard about such incredible work done across the Commonwealth. So as we conclude this roundtable, I would just love to hear any final reflections that you have from today.
Well, I mean, I think the heading of today's piece being to inspire has said it all, because every single one of these young people are truly inspirational. I think we're very, very fortunate to have this wonderful family of nations that we call the Commonwealth. We've got a huge opportunity to really let these people speak. I mean, I hope that CHOGM goes really well. I hope you speak loud and proud at CHOGM. It's a great platform for all of you to be at. You've got world leaders there right in front of you. This is your moment to get in front of them and to make your messages heard and seen. We have got a huge opportunity to shift dials and to change behaviors and to gain the inclusion and the equity that we're all looking for. But today's event has been so inspirational for all of us older ones who have to keep going. We need you younger ones to keep pushing us. And I thank you for that. But it's been a pure joy to hear each and every one of you speak. And yeah, thank you for giving me this opportunity to spend some time with you today.
Thank you, Your Highness. It's been an absolute honor. So to wrap up, I'm just going to go around and ask everyone just a final question. So we know this year's campaign, Inspire Inclusion, one step forward, a more inclusive world for women. So what is the one thing that you're going to do to inspire inclusion and just make this a more inclusive world? So Sarah, you're up first.
Thank you, Linda. So first off, I just want to say I'm inspired by everyone on the call, from the Royal Highness Duchess of Edinburgh to Elizabeth, to you, Linda, Bahati, Iman. I'm truly inspired by you all. And I'm also inspired being part of SAEN, being this network of young people across the Commonwealth. We are from diverse backgrounds and we always strive for inclusion. So I'm super inspired by that. And then passing that on to other young people, I am going to inspire inclusion by always listening to diverse voices and also amplifying marginalized perspectives, while also promoting safe spaces where everybody feels respected and safe. I definitely would champion diversity, equity, not equality, and inclusion, or more of equity than equality. Yeah, I would do that. I'll be that champion for the DEI. And moving on from that, collectively, I would say that we can collectively advocate for a more inclusive world by addressing systemic barriers. We are aware that there are systemic barriers. We've spoken about the table, we've spoken about like things related to it, and we have to address it in terms of those barriers that limit access to us achieving gender equality and equity. So we need to come together to address those barriers while creating inclusive spaces and platforms that center marginalized voices, particularly that for women and girls, while also promoting female leadership. I've heard a lot from Bahati, and I'm inspired by the model she adopts in promoting women and girls' voices and raising the platform for them to be able to be in leadership positions. We definitely have to come together to build alliances and partnerships with men, speaking to Iman's point of view. And we also have to embrace diversity and inclusion in whole so that we can collectively move forward to addressing gender-related issues that we have in our communities, in our institutions, in our societies, and in our countries at large. So yes, diversity and inclusion, I'm going to inspire it in these ways. And I hope that young people would also take this message to their hearts and also inspire inclusion in their respective spaces and places.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Bahati.
Thank you so much, Linda. I've been through much Hannah and inspired to actually be in this space. And all the things that has been shared today has been so much inspiring. And just to go straight to your point on how do we do? Actually, one of the main goals, first as a person and leader of the organization, what we want to do this 2024 is to create ecosystem for the inclusive society, especially for the young girls and women. One of the things we discover is like the girls and young women that we're dealing with, they're not living in a mass or in isolated community, and it's require ecosystems. And this ecosystem that involve everyone who actually associate with the girls and young women. This include the men, the family, the parent, the community, the leader, the religious leader, and everyone. And collectively, we actually can create an inclusive environment for all of us to actually survive and live in a very peaceful and equitable society.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Iman.
Thank you. And it was wonderful to hear all the work and all of the points that were being mentioned. And we're talking about inspiring inclusion. And from my personal experience as founder of LGBTI plus Gozo in the islands, very small island of Gozo, as part of Malta, something that I've learned, that experience taught me, was that in order to inspire inclusion, what Sarah also mentioned, is that we have to be collective. We have to unite together. As young people, we have to unite together. We cannot just have different messages and kind of compete with each other. Competition is healthy, but we also have to unite together, and we also have to kind of send a common message of understanding everyone. And I come from the LGBTI field. I mean, gender for me is more than just the binary. But what's important here is that we are truly understanding the different identities. And why is because at the end of the day, we always learn. I'm 29 years old. When I started the organization, I was 19. I've learned, and that's the beauty of it. You learn with other youths, and through the process of learning, you're able to contribute more and more. And that is why inspiring inclusion is so beautiful. You inspire inclusion within yourself in order to be able to inspire inclusion for others. And through the process of learning, we also learn different languages, as the Duchess mentioned. So SAEN is turning 10 years. We are the Commonwealth Youth Gender Equality Network. A conversation will be held in the next few months as we celebrate 10 years. Is SAEN going to stand for equality? Is it for equity? How can we merge this inclusive language? And this conversation is continuous, because if we stop having this conversation, then we're stopping inspiring inclusion. And that is the responsibility of us as members to continuously have this conversation. So I'm honestly honored to be here in order to be able to learn and to understand more how we can continue inspiring inclusion.
Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Elizabeth, final word to you. How will you inspire inclusion?
2 points, Linda. One, really simply, pay it forward. I recognise I've been incredibly lucky to have benefited from the opportunities that have opened up to me. For me, I want to create those opportunities for others coming after me, and particularly for such wonderful, young and inspiring people. Doing that by ensuring that young people, women, young men, are included in the activities I do, for example, taking people to meetings so they're exposed already to the world of diplomacy that we experience at a senior level, but also speaking to young people so that they might become aware of the opportunities that are out there. I was really touched once because I ran into a colleague in our cafeteria at Canberra, and she said to me, I met you at a course we did 10 years ago when you were working for the UN, and what you did then inspired me to take up an international career. I think that really highlights the importance of modelling good behaviour, and sometimes we're not always aware of the impact that we have on others who observe our behaviour. That's really important. That's good leadership, and that includes seeking out diverse perspectives and including diverse views in everyday work. So pay it forward, modelling good behaviour. That is how I'd like to really forward a more inclusive approach to the work that I do, but also with a broader impact on society.
Great final note to end on. I guess for my part, what I would like to do this year to make sure we inspire inclusion and also have concrete action is to ensure that SAEN has a voice at the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Samoa. So there is a youth voice, just like we have done for the past decade. So with that, these are just been a fantastic discussion. Such great suggestions for inclusion, how to inspire it. And I actually just want to thank each and every one of you for everything that you have done to inspire inclusion. And thank you for all the work I know you're going to do. Thank you. It's going to make a massive difference for a more inclusive world. And I want to thank the audience very much for joining us today. And to become involved in the work of SAEN, please go to our website. That's www.royalcwsociety.org. And to everyone, happy International Women's Day.